Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for attending the last and the finest and the biggest that we have on today. An audience with Dean Hoyle, Kirklees' highest profile entrepreneur.
Who says that?
Me. And I say. Run it as an interactive question and answer session for everyone, so we can get the most out of and pick Dean's brain. Dean's someone that's been there, done that, continues to do it. He could have retired, led the easy life in the Bahamas.
I'm trying to.
But no, still he's plowing his money back into town, supporting the local economy. He's someone that I look up to as a business person. Sorry to tell you this, Dean, in front of everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, the interactive part of the session I think will work better. With a roving mic in the audience, so any questions on the fly, please raise your hand and we'll go for it. The first question comes from Simone Tennant-Smith of Simone's Handwriting Analysis. Simone, would you stand and make yourself known? Thank you.
What were the pitfalls that when starting out would have made a big difference to where you told about them?
Interesting, yeah. I think before I kick off, I think I can't particularly give you the right answers today. All I can give you is my experience from Card Factory through the years I've done it. So they may not be what you always want to hear, but I can just tell it from how I feel. What would I know? I think it's a very tough one actually, because I think when you go into start any business, I was actually 24, not when I started Card Factory, but when I actually left engineering to go and find the big wide world of business. I was young. I think a lot of people didn't take me seriously. It was quite tough. And to be honest, what would I know? Let's have a think about this one. I think you've got to believe in yourself. I don't think I had enough belief when I was early enough. I think everybody else seemed to believe in me, but not myself. But I think when you get into the business and you start off, you're okay. I think the main pitfalls really, and the things to look out for, I think you've got to be very aware of lots of people. I think lots of people kind of tell you, this is what you should be doing, how you're doing it. I think it's really a lot of gut feeling. I think what would have made a difference? Not a lot really. I think this is where it's quite tough for me, because I went straight into a business which was very successful. I think I was very fortunate and very lucky, but I went into a business where I kind of had success right from day one. And even when I look back on it now, I find it very hard to believe what happened, if I'm honest with you, in such a short space of time. So it's a pretty tough one really, and I'm not sure whether I can answer that. Maybe I can answer that question even more as other questions come in, but I think it's a tough one. I think if I'd have had lots more obstacles in my way, maybe I went around the obstacles and I didn't realise I was doing it. It just happened. But you've got to follow the gut feeling and drive yourself on really. Okay.
At what point did you start believing in yourself? What switch flipped?
I think, to be honest, I think when people started recognising what we're doing, and they said, you know, hey, he's got something between his goals, and you know, because I think you've got to understand. I left school at 16. I think that's unusual nowadays. I left school at 16, no qualifications. Not because I wasn't particularly bright. I just couldn't be bothered at school. I went to a not particularly good school. In fact, I think when I look back on it now, it's very poor school, if I'm honest with you. School of life, they told me, school of life, but there you go. And I went to be an engineer. I left in '83, very similar to now. Recession, pretty bad recession, different type of recession. I think it was mainly manufacturing jobs going. Now it's completely different, but nothing to happening. I went on a YTS youth training scheme, £25 a week, and that got me into the workplace. And I went for a job in Dewsbury one day. After the YTS, I think for 6 months, there was a labourer in the engineering factory in Dewsbury, and the guy said to me there, he said, look, you know, if you sweep the floor well enough and do it quick for a year, then you show something about you might put you on an apprenticeship. And from there, I went on an apprenticeship to Dewsbury College, DABTAC in those days, and I went to the apprenticeship. I got to be the 86, was 19. I got the apprentice of the year. It's the first thing I've ever achieved ever in my life. And right from that day I thought, yeah, if you put your wits to you, if you work hard and you believe in yourself, anything's possible. And I think I've shown that with the Card Factory. And I know it's an old cliche, but if I can do it, anybody can do it. But you've got to believe in yourself, and it isn't always like that. you know, you have plenty of dips, but it's those dips where you really learn, you know, how to survive really.
I think we'll come on to those later on in one of the other questions
Yeah,
as well.
I've had plenty of dips.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the credibility thing is interesting as well because to me, the best way to get your credibility out there is to let other people believe in you. So, you know, you can probably talk to fantastic media and they'll do all your PR for you and make you look very wonderful. But at the same time, you're also telling all your competitors how well you're doing. And if you've got a good idea, my belief is you keep your head below the radar as long as possible. You do your own thing, and by the time they recognise it, it's too late. And that happened with Card Factory. So it's a fine balance, really.
Dean, what was the biggest mistake you made?
Apart from investing in the Huddersfield Town Football Club. or allowing my manager carte blanche. No, I think. Oh dear me, yeah. Do you know something? I'm going to turn that on its head. And I'm not trying to be blasé here, but in my Card Factory life, I've made very few mistakes, and I think that's why it's all gone so swimmingly well. We've managed to grow it from, I was working this out the other day actually, and it quite shocked me. People talking about shareholder value, how much they increase the value of the business each week. And when I sold it for just short of 400 million. And I've been going for 12 years. So I remember one shop in Wakefield, 97, 1st of November, right up to when I sold it last Easter. I increased shareholder value by £601,000 a week, every week, for 12 years. And that's where I got my value from. So yeah, I don't think my wife quite understands that yet, but that's really, so I think I've had a lot of success. But let me tell you about a situation I had where it was probably the lowest point of Card Factory, but at the same time it made Card Factory what it really is today. Probably 2003 we had 100 stores, and we had a situation where we were selling things very cheap, which we still do now, and we were really destroying the market. But we only had 100 stores, so we were a pain in the backside, a pain in the side, but weren't really changing the industry. But the guys in the industry, the hallmark of this world, they knew if they didn't stop me, we could cause bigger problems, hence where we are today. And what really happened is Hallmark, I remember one January, we were in Plymouth, and I went skiing the next day. I remember going skiing the next day, driving back, and I got a phone call at 4 o'clock, and 3 suppliers in half an hour closed my accounts. So they said, Dean, you're a good lad, but unfortunately, unless you put your prices up, we can't supply you anymore. And three companies did that. So for instance, that accounted for 70% of my supply chain. So it was quite awkward. At that point, I had 100 stores, probably employing 1,000 staff, turnover of probably about 30-40 million. So it was quite a substantial size, and that was probably the lowest point. So I may tell you later how I got around that, but the bottom line is what we ended up doing in the long run is engineering our own supplies. We took all in-house production, because I thought, you know, what's the point in running your own business if somebody else is going to tell you how to run it? Pointless. You know, you run your own business, in my eyes, so you can do what you want to do, and the business is yours, and you can influence, you know, express yourself. So I thought, no, you know, yeah, the easiest thing is to say, right, okay, I'll put the prices up, I'll play ball, and we'll all live happily ever after. But what's the point? So I stuck to my guns. I played a lot of games. I had to get lots of stock in quick. Won't bother what it said on them, but a card's a card in summer. I got the stock in. And it gave me 6 months breathing space. And we set the design studio up. We started publishing, and now we've got factories in China, the Far East, in the UK, in Bradford. We've got a big printing facility in Bradford now, and that's really what really made Card Factory, because ultimately, from them suppliers saying no, behave, Dean, you know, you need to really, you know, put your price up so we can all live happily, we can all live well. That year, I think 3 years after that, to give you an idea how much impact it made, because what we also did is take all the margin out of all the suppliers, so publishers, printers, we took all the margin. I think we were forecast to make 20 million that year, and we made 44, and that's the difference between taking it all in-house and the supply chain is secure. And really, Card Factory now is not just a retailer selling greeting cards, it's really a sophisticated supply chain, and it's the supply chain what is so good, which really makes other people unable to compete, and that's why it's so good at the moment.
So it'd be fair to say that the biggest mistake would have been playing ball?
One of my biggest mistakes, if you put it like that, would have actually playing ball, bowing down to them, and probably letting people dictate. But I'm a stubborn Yorkshireman. People say quite blunt. I don't like people telling me what to do in certain areas, and that really drove me on. So the biggest downer in Card Factory enabled us to make such a successful business. So when you have downs, you've got to think to yourself, what's it telling you?
Yeah. It's a bit of a follow-on, I suppose, to what you've just answered, but really when times are tough,
Yeah.
and your sales are not as high as you want, your costs are too high, how do you respond, firstly, but then secondly, what really motivates you?
It's hard for me to talk about any individual business because I don't understand, obviously, other people or your business or whatever. But I think you've got to look at yourself as a person, and I think you've got to think, well, for one, why am I doing this? I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of business people make, especially in today's climate, when the easy option may be to work for themselves and not for somebody else, because they've been made redundant. They think give it a go. But I think if you're a true entrepreneur, if you're that person who can really feel they can make a difference and do it for themselves, and you've got some aggression in you, I think you'll be okay. I think sometimes I've seen lots of people who have gone self-employed because it's been the easier option than to work for somebody else, and they think part-time hours can bring full-time pay and everything else, and that's tough. I think what people need to understand is if somebody's sales are down, raw materials just aren't going up for one company, they're going up for all companies. Sales will probably be tough for every business. I think if it was happening at Card Factory, I would look at all my competitors and I think, well, first of all, are they doing anything I wouldn't do? Because, sometimes the best ideas aren't your own. I remember when I started Card Factory, I got a tip-off that a company had just opened up in the Northwest called Card Warehouse. And I went over to the Northwest and I saw this Card Warehouse with blue and yellow signs. I thought, I quite like the colour of blue and yellow. And we ended up having it. But I think you've got to look at other people's business and think, well, what do they do differently to me? Are they doing any better? Have they got a niche? But the other thing as well, in any business, I always believe there's no point being mainstream. Because when you say mainstream and you do similar to everybody else, the only thing what will happen is you will get pressure on your prices. Because the only thing that can differentiate you from the other business is your prices. So you've got to offer something different, whether it's niche, whether it's a service, a product, and try and be different. But if people are struggling, which, let's be fair, lots of people are, it's tough out there, all your competitors will be the same. And you've got to really try and survive. And if you survive the next 2 and 3 years, you'll do very well. And to be honest, this day and age, a recession will sort a lot of dead wood out anyway. Going back to the question the lady had before about confidence, apart from people giving me confidence, a lot of people also kick me very hard. And they say, Card Factory, no, I'll never survive. I always remember we opened our first store in Wakefield. And the day before, you're shop fitting it, the week before, and you hear the old dears going past. And you hear them say, not another bloody card shop. I'm thinking, well, there were not as many as there is now. I'm thinking, I'll show you, And it's when people say to me, no, it's that bit of aggression I have inside me saying, I'll show you, I'm determined. And I think if you've got determination, you'll get through. But at the same time, determination alone won't get you through. You've got to have a good business. And, if you believe that what you're doing is mainstream, try and find a niche, because that's the way to do it. Card Factory had a niche. What was Card Factory's niche? Selling similar products to Clinton's, but 75% less price. That's the niche. Still a greeting card, but something different.